Alright, so keying footage, first you just have to import the MOV or video file in to begin with. I've made it into a new composition and put it in its own layer. Next I'm going to go to the Effect menu and then go down to Keying. You can see that there's a whole menu option dedicated to this in After Effects, and as I mentioned before, this is one of the main purposes of this program, is to remove this green screen footage for composites and other special effects shots in movies. Now you can see there's quite a few options when you go Effect, Keying, and I'm just going to highlight a couple of them for you.
Can we ask a question?
Yes, you can ask a question.
If you can't get if everything's grayed out under Effect, and you're not clicking
Your
on
footage
something-
just probably isn't selected. You had to select to Effect. So I have the MOV selected. If I don't have the MOV selected, everything is gray. I could select it really easily just by clicking on the layer and then going Effect, Keying.
Okay, that was it.
So once you go Effect, Keying and your object is selected, you've got a couple of options. I'm actually going to go with Keylight 1.2, which is probably my favorite way of keying. I usually start with this one. Like I said, these are all variations of the same thing, but I tend to think this one works the best. So I'm going to go Effect, Keying, Keylight. And the main thing you have to do is you have to choose the color that you're going to remove. That's basically the core of all of these keying techniques, is they're going to have an eyedropper of some sort, and they want you to sample the color that's going to be taken away. So if you click on this little eyedropper here, you can click on the green, and you can see that it basically removes the green instantly. Keylight works really, really well. Now it looks like it just replaced it with black, but you might remember from previous lessons that there really is alpha still here. And I could see that if I click on that little toggle transparency grid button. So I can see that this truly is keyed. Now I might want to finesse it, and to really get a better idea of how good it looks, I'm actually going to make a new layer, specifically a solid, that's the opposite color of whatever the background is. So I was removing green, so I'm going to make an ugly magenta background so that I can tell that all of my green is out of it before I export it. So I'm going to just put that under my footage, and that's really helpful because it will show me if it's transparent or bleeding through it all. You can see that some of the green was actually in his fur, and this is actually going to be semi-transparent, which we don't want. So I would have not noticed that if I had just had kept it like this and just had the black there, or even the transparency. It's really good to add a solid of the opposite color that you're keying, just to get an idea of what's not there. I don't know how many of you have done that with masks before, but it's really easy to make a slappy one. So I'm just going to make sure that my MOV is selected, and then I'm just going to adjust these different settings. So the screen color I think looks good, but between the gain and the balance, I should be able to strike a pretty good chord here. Now, I can adjust the gain, and you can see that it'll take quite a bit of the green out of the hand. But I want to adjust the balance too. And I've got pretty much the whole hand in, but if I turn off that magenta background, you can see it's kind of semi there. There's still some green. So it's just really a matter of continuing to tweak it. I might want to choose other greens, or you can blur the green. You can also choose clipping, which is always very helpful. Clipping will help you control the edge of your key, as you can see here. Okay, you can see that this is just semi-opaque, and if I start to clip the black, you'll see that that will be nice and clear, but the hand is nice and not pink anymore. Okay, meaning that it'll be nice and opaque rather than see-through. So between adjusting the color, which is the main thing, the gain and the balance, and then the clip, usually they're done in a way that you would just go right in order as far as adjusting them goes. You just want to fine-tune this to the best of your ability. I'm going to clip the white a little bit because it's kind of eating into his fur there. And I just want a nice clean edge. It still looks kind of furry. Now this is a particularly hard thing to mask or key because of the fur. Okay, and that's one of the reasons I asked Peter to donate this footage, because any one of us could do it with a human footage, but humans are decidedly easier to key than giant bipedal wolf things. So now if I scrub through the footage, I still have a little bit of green in here. It's good. Remember that you're not working with the static image. You really have to go through and make sure that it looks good throughout the whole footage. But if the lighting changes, please note that there's stopwatches next to all of these figures. So if your lighting changes and it affects your key, you can always animate the properties that get rid of the green. For example, if I need to clip more here, I can turn on that little stopwatch and just make sure that that's totally out. Okay, so you can still adjust stuff as you go, and I think that looks pretty good. There's still a little bit around the edges I want to get rid of, but I can do that in just a moment. Now, this is just one out of many techniques, and I'm going to demonstrate some other ones in just a moment, but I want to bring up another technique that's really important with keying. We really don't want all this studio gear around the wolf. We just want him. And we could crop it out, but this is the size shot we want. One thing that's extremely common when you're keying is creating something called a garbage matte, which is just a nice way of saying that you're hiding everything you don't want in there. Now, the easiest way to create a mask is just by grabbing your pen tool or a shape tool, but since he's not a particular shape, I'm going to use the pen. I want to make sure that second button is checked on at the top, so it's creating a mask, not a shape. And you'll know right away whether it's doing that because a mask will stay yellow and won't add a new layer. It actually becomes part of the layer you're working on. Otherwise, if it filled in with color, you're working with a shape layer, which you don't want at this time. Now, this isn't going to work for the whole movie because if I scrub back to the beginning, now he just has like a little vignette that he's in, and that's not exactly what we want. So it ends fine, but I'm going to go to the beginning and twirl on the mask and make sure that I animate the mask path. So if I animate the mask path, actually, I can even make it easier than that by just having the mask opacity change so that there is no mask in the meantime. But I'm going to animate the mask path just because that's the common thing to do. I'm going to click on the little stopwatch, and then I simply have to go to my arrow tool. There's no direct select, and click on the little individual points of my mask. So if I click on the little points of my mask, you can see it's just like any other vector shape. And I could pull it out to encompass all of what I want.
And you can be sloppy with this one
It's
already.
Yep, you can be really sloppy with this because it will animate over time. So I'm just going to scrub my playhead ahead until it looks like it's having trouble, and then I'm just going to scrub further. And now here's where I actually need to have it start coming in a little. But it's a really easy way of trimming out unwanted footage without having to go through a bunch of cropping and resizing issues. And then I could just go to the end here. And you can even just grab the segment itself. If it's hard for you to grab the points, you can just grab a segment and pull it in. And then I have a pretty decent little mask. Now, another huge part of keying is just color. And even though we got rid of most of the green, he kind of has like a red tint to him. Okay? And that's something that we would fix afterwards as well. So keying usually is done in mine because there's going to be compositing. Now, it's always good to watch your shot and make sure nothing's getting cut out, like his tail is getting cut out right there. And I noticed earlier an ear was getting cut out, I think. Right there, there's a corner that's not quite right. So it's a lot of fine-tuning, but it's pretty easy to do in the scheme of things. And if I want to remove, if I could even get more specific and like pull this right up around his feet, and even trace his feet, which would be more like rotoscoping. But I think this is okay for right now.